We begin this particular module with a couple of questions, a couple of quick questions for you to ponder. All right. So if you would indulge me, I'd like you to answer these two questions on a scale of 1 to 10, a scale of 1 to 10. All right. How intelligent are you? How intelligent are you? Think of a number. You don't have to divulge it. Think of a number between 1 and 10. How intelligent are you? All right. Posit that number in your brain. Now answer this question. How creative are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how creative are you? Now, if I'm not mistaken, those two numbers between intelligent and creative are two different numbers, not the same number. More often than not, that's the case. I ask these two questions because, quite honestly, they're stupid questions. They're dumb questions. I bring this up because there is this idea of a false dichotomy, and it kind of permeates all of higher education. False dichotomy is defined as a fallacy of presenting only two choices, outcomes, or sides to an argument as the only two possibilities. When more are available, in some cases, the dichotomy, the split, need not exist at all. And that's what I want to talk about today, is this sort of false binary, false dichotomy. All right, let's say that you went to a hospital. And you got in, you had broken your left leg. You'd broken your left leg, and they said, "Well, we're sorry, we're a right leg only hospital." You would find that crazy, right? But what we need to think about is how you learn. How you learn is actually your entire being, right? Your entire body. That's how hospitals work. That's quite honestly how education should work. So the idea between intelligent, you'll see here, and creative over here, the idea I proposed to you was what a lot of people do. They don't think they're as creative as they are intelligent most times. But quite honestly, you are an orchestra. You actually are in the middle of this wonderful orchestra of intelligences that you have control over. Let's say you're running on a treadmill. You are likely, and I would hope you would be, a little more sort of kinesthetically intelligent at that point than you are practical or creative or mathematical, right? But at different times in your day, depending on what you're doing, the task you are trying to achieve, you might be more creative, more analytic, more mathematical, more rhythmic, you name it. Your intelligences, there are a number of them, not just intelligent and creative. There's a number of them. And so I want to think of yourself as this sort of conductor of your own orchestra, your own orchestra of intelligences. So I brought that as a sort of a trick question. I asked you two trick questions that I then said doesn't matter. They're dumb questions, but that's how we often think as human beings. And I want to call attention to that. There are other false binaries I want to get into. One is what we accumulate. If you're a student, you are likely on a path where you are accumulating credits. We often think of success as accumulating objects or items or cars or you name it, properties. We are kind of as obsessed as human beings in accumulating. In fact, there's a wonderful individual who's a founder of the Isha Foundation who talks about how we as human beings are obsessed with gathering, with kind of collecting things. And so I want to kind of draw that false binary as well. What we accumulate is not really who we are. And to give you an example of who we are, I want to bring up this individual, will.i.am. He's a Grammy Award winner from the Black Eyed Peas, but also, has done multiple things in his life. He's a producer and songwriter and singer and actor and philanthropist. I highly recommend you look up the I Am Angel Foundation. But anyway, will.i.am is a remarkably creative and successful person who uses his own intelligences to advance his career. I want to play this little snippet of will.i.am speaking about that creative process.
I have a sense that you do a lot of work in your unconscious mind. It's like it's come from another part of you.
It's a part of me that is timeless. It's tapping into that absolute,
Yes.
infinite realities, right?
Right.
I'm just experiencing the one here. You sit at the table, you start a song, 10 hours pass, and it seems like 2 minutes pass. All I know is when I wrote it, I'm like, I know this.
It's like finding that thread that resonates because it's truth. So you know that.
Yeah.
What's going on is that you have such an intense connection to that creative force. You need to be creating for your sanity at all times.
It's making sense out of things in song or in rhythm. And some people say that's creative. I say that's just me being me.
Right.
Because that's all I know how to do.
All right, so fascinating kind of idea there. will.i.am is describing what a Hungarian psychologist calls flow. If you have ever experienced flow, it's when you get involved and so kind of engage in a process, an activity, could be anything, that you forget about time, you forget to eat, you forget about a lot of things because you're obsessed with that one project. So that's what Will.i.am was describing there, was what many psychologists call flow, being in the flow channel. All right, so that's what we accumulate versus who we are. Those are two other false binaries. What we accumulate is definitely not who we are. Information in our aesthetic selves. Here's another interesting idea here. Many of us, myself included, read The Diary of Anne Frank. It's a textbook that we read in perhaps middle school. But I think in my line of work, it's really interesting to think of that particular piece of work, in this case, in an aesthetic way, in a visceral way. I work in the area of theater, and I'm a designer, a set designer. This is an example of a show of The Diary of Anne Frank, a play adaptation of that diary, done in a theater in Cleveland. It was a remarkable show with an amazing cast, and we had the audacity as designers to encircle not just the cast, but the audience in fake barbed wire. The idea here is we wanted the audience to feel like they were trapped in the same way that the occupants of the annex were trapped, and unable to find freedom until the Nazis were gone. We even had the audacity, while we're on the topic of audacity, of costuming actors as SS officers and having them literally march around the audience. So you got this visceral feeling. Over a 2-hour period of time, you got to know these 8 characters, these 8 remarkable individuals in a very personal way. And as the play ends, historically the play ends as well, the only surviving member of those 8 people is Anna's father, Otto Frank. Otto Frank enters the space, to this cacophony of train noises. He finds, amidst the strewn and destroyed annex, he finds Anne Frank's diary, the now famous diary. He holds up the diary, and the last 3 words of the play are, "All that remains, all that remains." So, in describing that process to you, I hope you got some sense of a visceral kind of idea behind that diary. You may have read the diary, been affected by it, certainly by reading it, but breathing life into it in a stage adaptation is really also part of what that diary is. It's the aesthetic, the visceral part of that diary. All right, another one, what we tell students to value versus what they do value, pre-education. I think we're not often tapped into our inner child, which I'll talk about in a play module. But what we still tell students to value, really, I'm a critique of my own teaching, of my own colleagues. What we tell them to think versus facilitate knowing. And there is a difference. There is not a magic right answer to everything. The world is full of nuance, of gray, in addition to black and white. So what we tell students to think versus facilitating knowing, I more often than not try to facilitate a space where students learn on their own, maybe through practical projects and that type of thing. One of my favorite quotes that I like to share is this one: "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire." Whenever I ask myself, what is it I need to help this student do? It's not regurgitating information back to me. I want to light a fire in that student, and interest them in what I do. So that's education. It's not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. STEM fields in the humanities and the arts. There has been, since the age of the Enlightenment, a split between the Romantics and the Enlightened. The idea here being that hard sciences, biology, chemistry, things that you can actually see and touch, are actually more in the STEM fields, obviously, than humanities and the arts. And humanities, the arts are more the Romantics. But I think that that's a false binary. I think there's quite a bit of humanity and art in STEM fields and a lot of STEM in humanities and the arts. And to explain this, I want to share this example. Terence Tao. Terence Tao has this resume behind him. He began high school at age 7. He got a master's at 17 and a PhD at 21. He is known in math circles as the Mozart of math. He is quite an accomplished mathematician. He was asked once, by Sir Ken Robinson, he was asked, how do you evaluate a PhD in math? A PhD in math. And he said, well, there are 2 bits of criteria we look for. One is, how original is it? How creative it is? It has to break new ground conceptually. That makes sense. But this second part, I'm obsessed with that second word, the beauty of the proof. He says, among mathematicians, there's a strong belief that mathematics is the purest way we have for understanding the natural world. And since nature is inherently beautiful, there's a powerful feeling that the more elegant the proof is, the more likely it is to be true. It is an informal test of truth. So think about that. There is beauty in science. As there is beauty in art, there is beauty in science. Well, I decided to take this as an impetus for me to ask my colleagues at Washington University, where I teach, ask some of them across fields what they called beautiful in their line of work. Here's about six of them right here. They cover everything from physical therapy to brain sciences to occupational therapy to comp sci to engineering, all the way down to earth and planetary sciences. And overwhelmingly, I asked them, what do you call beautiful? What is beauty in your line of work? And much like Terence Tao's reaction, they had these remarkable stories about beautiful things in their line of work. There is beauty in art and there is beauty in science. And so what I think this equals is one more important, I think, false binary, and that is arts and sciences. Quite often, most institutions, even my own, has an ampersand, an and sign between arts and sciences, as if they are two different things. But as I just said, there's a lot of art and science and a lot of science and art, and we need not hold that false binary as truth for us. So these are the kind of false dichotomies list of things that I want you to think about as you go through your journey as a student, as you think about your own talents, your own individual talents, how you might be kind of an interesting individual, and how you might think of yourself as intelligent and creative and kinesthetic and practical and all those wonderful things as an orchestrator, conductor of your own journey in education. That's false dichotomy.